Subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell for more incredible stories. You won't want to miss what happens next. The world stopped for a single, breathtaking second. Billionaire CEO Marcus Thorne, a titan of industry, had just emerged from a grueling meeting in downtown Manhattan, exhaustion etched onto his sharp features. All he craved was the quiet sanctuary of his penthouse. As his armored SUV sliced through the city's relentless traffic, his gaze idly drifted to the bustling sidewalk. And that's when he saw her. There she stood, a figure of weary grace outside a vintage pharmacy, a tattered grocery bag clutched in her hand. Beside her, 3 identical children, miniature replicas with his eyes, his mouth, and that same spark of curious intensity he knew so well. The vision lasted mere heartbeats before a passing taxi tore the scene away. "Stop the car, now!" Marcus roared, his voice raw with an urgency that startled his driver. He scrambled out, scanning the chaos. But she was gone, swallowed by the urban tide. His heart hammered against his ribs. He knew, with chilling certainty, it was Sophia, his ex-girlfriend, the one he'd abandoned 6 years ago without a word. He saw her then, across the street, ushering the trio into a rideshare. Marcus froze, a knot of dread tightening in his stomach. Should he run? Shout? Or just let her go, again? The car pulled away, leaving him trembling, consumed by the image of those 3 children, carbon copies of himself. Arriving at his sprawling Santa Fe apartment, Marcus ripped off his jacket in a surge of frustration, pouring himself a whiskey, though it was barely 4 in the afternoon. He paced, each stride a rewind, through his memories of Sophia. Her infectious laughter, the way her eyes lit up when she spoke of her dreams, her comforting embrace after a late night. And then, his mind invariably returned to the children. How could they resemble him so perfectly? He snatched his phone, furiously scrolling through social media. Nothing. Sophia had vanished from the digital world as if she'd never existed. This unsettled him deeply. Despite his efforts to forget her, a part of him had always held on, a love tucked away in a fragile box, too afraid to open it, lest the pain spill out. He sank into his desk chair, opening an encrypted folder on his computer, filled with old photos. Sophia on the beach, in his old apartment, cuddling his dog in her pajamas, laughing with a mouthful of popcorn. One photo in particular, where she hugged him from behind, her face pressed into his neck, made his lips tighten. He knew what he had to do. "Lucas," he barked into the phone to his assistant. "I need you to find someone. Her name is Sophia Miller. No address, just that she's in New York City and has 3 kids. A pause. "Anything else, sir?" "Yes," Marcus stated, his voice tight. "Those children, they might be mine." A long, awkward silence hung in the air before Lucas simply replied, "Understood, sir." Marcus hung up, gazing out at the cityscape. Thousands of lights, millions of people, but only one mattered now. He didn't know if she was angry, if she hated him, or if she'd simply moved on. But those children, he couldn't leave things like this. He couldn't live with the doubt, because if they were what he believed, his life was about to change irrevocably. He woke the next morning with a singular focus: find her. And this time, he wouldn't leave without answers. Marcus tossed and turned that night, staring at the ceiling, pacing his apartment, then collapsing back onto the sheets. Every time he closed his eyes, the scene replayed. Sophia, standing on the street with her 3 children, so painfully similar to him. It was as if his past had suddenly, without warning, reached out and slapped him. Before 8 a.m. the next day, he was in his office. His team greeted him as usual, with polite respect and practiced smiles. but he barely responded. He strode directly into his private office, closed the door, and looked out the window. The entire city continued its usual routine. Cars, people, noise. But inside him, it was pure chaos. He sat at his desk, picked up his phone, and searched social media again. Her name, her face, any trace of Sophia. Nothing. Not on Facebook, not on Instagram, nowhere. It was as if the earth had swallowed her whole. This infuriated him further. How could someone disappear so easily? How could he, with all his resources, be so utterly clueless? Lucas arrived with coffee and a stack of papers. Marcus barely glanced at him. "Anything?" he asked, blunt and desperate. "Not yet, boss," Lucas replied. "We're digging through birth certificates and school records, but if she changed her address and last name, it's going to take a while." Marcus nodded, not in the mood for conversation. When Lucas left, he was alone again, leaning on the desk, holding his head in his hands, eyes closed. Memories flooded back, like a film projected in his mind. He saw himself 6 years ago, younger, less weary, brimming with an ambition that almost seeped from his pores. Back then, he and Sophia lived together in a small apartment in Brooklyn. No luxuries, but they had everything. He worked from home, crafting presentations, seeking investors, trying to launch his first startup. She was a kindergarten teacher. She'd come home exhausted, but always with a smile. They'd laugh at silly things, order pizza at night. Sometimes they didn't have money for gas and took cold showers. But they were together, and that was enough. Then came the opportunity. A foreign fund wanted to invest in his project, but he'd have to move to San Francisco for a year. That's when everything changed. He suggested she come with him. She said she couldn't leave her job, her students, everything she had. They argued often, each time louder, until one morning, without a word, he packed his bag, his laptop, some papers, and left. He left a flimsy note that simply read, "Sorry, I can't stay." Cowardly, he thought. He never heard from her again. He thought about writing to her many times, but always put it off. Then his company soared. The trips, the millions, the interviews, the luxuries followed. But sometimes, when he was alone, he remembered Sophia, and it hurt. Now all of it rushed back, as if no time had passed, as if life was telling him, "You haven't finished this chapter." Marcus pushed himself from his chair. He walked to the wall where a glass display case held mementos, awards, photos with politicians, and business accolades. But there was a hidden box at the back, containing things he hadn't touched in years. He took it, placed it on the table, and opened it. Inside lay a red string bracelet Sophia had given him at the beginning, a handwritten letter from her, a movie ticket, and an old, faded pregnancy test. Positive. He stared at it blankly. He didn't remember saving it. Maybe she'd left it in the apartment before he left. Perhaps at the time he didn't want to understand it. But now, seeing that test and remembering the children, everything clicked. She had gotten pregnant, and he had simply left. He sat back down, staring at the ceiling. He felt rage, sadness, guilt, all mixed together. He didn't know what hurt more, having left her alone at that moment, or having lost 6 years of those children's lives. His phone vibrated. A message from Lucas. "Found something. Sending address in 5 minutes." Marcus stared at the screen. He took a deep breath. He knew this message would lead him straight to the place where everything would change. What he didn't know was if he was ready to face it. Marcus arrived at the address Lucas had sent an hour later. He didn't want his driver. He drove alone, his SUV silent, his hands sweaty on the steering wheel. The area wasn't dangerous, but it was certainly unlike the upscale neighborhoods he now frequented. There were potholed streets, taco stands, people sitting outside their homes, children playing soccer barefoot. He parked the SUV, staring at the old building for a few seconds. The paint was peeling, but it didn't look abandoned. He double-checked the number. Yes, this was it. He looked up at the third floor. He didn't know which apartment she lived in, but something in his chest told him she was there. At that moment, he didn't dare go up. He thought about knocking, but what would he say? "Hi, I'm the idiot who got you pregnant 6 years ago." He let out a bitter laugh, ran a hand over his face, and decided to wait. Lucas had told him she left for work every day around 4. It was 3:30, so he stayed in his car, watching the building as if it were an adversary. At exactly 4 o'clock, the building door opened. Sophia emerged with her 3 children. They were neatly dressed, small backpacks on their shoulders, walking like little soldiers. She carried a large tote bag and her phone in her hand. They walked towards the corner where the school vans usually passed. Marcus got out of the car without thinking. His legs moved on their own. He crossed the street, reached them on the sidewalk, and less than 10 feet away, he said her name. Sophia. She spun around, instantly paralyzed. The children stopped too, looking at him with curious eyes. The silence stretched for seconds that felt like hours. She said nothing, just stared at him, as if she couldn't believe he was there. "Can we talk?" Marcus asked. His voice low but firm. Sophia lowered her gaze. She didn't greet him. She didn't ask anything. She just told her children to wait at the corner convenience store. They obeyed without a word. Then she looked directly into his eyes. "What are you doing here?" Marcus swallowed hard. He didn't know where to begin. "I saw you a few days ago. You were waiting for a rideshare with them?" She didn't answer, just kept staring at him, fearless but cold. "Don't tell me it was a coincidence that you found me," she finally said, her tone dry. "Because I don't believe in anything. It was a coincidence that day," he quickly replied. "But not today. Today I came because I need to know." "Know what?" "If they're my children." Sophia crossed her arms. She took a deep breath, as if holding back a scream. "And if they are? What? Are you going to take them? Are you going to rip them out of their lives and put them into yours, full of luxuries, of things they don't even understand?" "No, I just want to know them, to be a part of their lives. I didn't know anything, Sophia." She looked at him with bright eyes, but she didn't shed a single tear. "You didn't know, because you didn't care enough to stay. Because you left as if I didn't exist. You didn't even ask if I was okay. You left me a note, Marcus." He lowered his gaze. There was no way to defend himself. "You're right," he said, barely audible. "And now what? Are you here to play the repentant father, the man who has everything and wants to fill the void with something he abandoned?" "I'm not here to play dumb. I'm here to take responsibility. If they're mine, I want to be there, not to take them away from you, not to change their lives, just to be there." Sophia looked at him with a mixture of anger and sadness. Then she saw the children, already calling her from the store. She checked her watch. "I have to go. I work at 5. I don't have time for this. Can I see you another day?" he asked, almost pleading. "I don't know. I don't know if I want this. I don't know if I want you back in our lives. It took us a lot to recover. Just one more time. At a coffee shop. A neutral place. You decide." She hesitated, thought for a few seconds. Then she pulled out her phone. She opened her notes app and wrote something. She showed him the screen. "Tomorrow at 6, at this coffee shop. If you're 1 minute late, I'm leaving." Marcus nodded. She turned without another word. She walked to get her children, squeezed all 3 of their hands, and continued walking as if nothing had happened. He stood there, feeling as if a huge stone had been placed on his chest. But he also felt something else. There was a tiny chance, and it was there, Are you enjoying the story so far? Like this video and share your thoughts in the comments below. What would you do in Marcus's shoes? Marcus couldn't focus on anything for the rest of the day. He canceled a meeting with investors, ignored calls from his fiancée, Danielle, and holed up in his apartment. He paced the living room like a caged lion, phone in hand, staring at the coffee shop address every 5 minutes, as if it might disappear. He had a meeting with Sophia the next day, but his mind couldn't wait any longer. Something inside him wouldn't let him rest. He needed to know more. He poured himself a whiskey, no ice, took a long swallow, and sat in front of his computer. He logged into his email, found Lucas's direct contact, and sent a short message. Need to know more about Sophia. Everything you can find. Her children's schools, her jobs, anything. Urgent. Not 5 minutes passed before Lucas called. Are you sure, boss? This could be delicate. Do it. I want to know if they're mine. I'm not waiting for her to tell me in words. Lucas hesitated, but agreed. The call ended, and Marcus remained there, staring at the screen. His fingers trembled. He knew it wasn't right, that he was crossing a line, but he couldn't help it. He had that feeling in his gut, that mix of anxiety and fear. Something inside him screamed that those children were his. He didn't need proof. He had seen them. It was like seeing himself in a mirror, divided into 3. He tried to get some sleep, but it was useless. He returned to social media, but with no results. Then he searched Google. How to know if a child is yours without official proof. The answers were absurd. He closed everything and collapsed on the sofa, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. The clock read 2 a.m. The next day dawned with a slight mist. Marcus woke early, more from nerves than habit. He showered, changed his shirt 3 times, and left over an hour early. He arrived at the cafe, asked for a table in a corner, away from the windows, and sat with his leg constantly bouncing. He checked his watch every 2 minutes. People came and went, but Sophia never arrived. At 10 to 6, he thought she wouldn't come. He felt a tightness in his chest, but at exactly 6 o'clock, the door opened, and there she was. She arrived alone, in a simple blouse, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. No makeup, no accessories. Just herself, as he always remembered her. Marcus stood without a word. Sophia walked over, sat across from him, and looked at him intently. You have 15 minutes. He nodded, sat back down, and took a deep breath. Thank you for coming. I didn't do it for you, she said immediately. I did it to make things clear. Marcus lowered his gaze for a second, then looked at her again. I want to know if the children are mine. No, I'm not here out of remorse or guilt. I'm here because I need to know the truth. And if I say yes, what are you going to do? Be there, support them, be part of their lives, even if you don't want me near. She looked at him with a serious expression. You can't just show up 6 years later and pretend everything will be fixed. You don't know what it was like, raising them alone, with 2 jobs, making miracles with money. And you didn't even ask. I know, I have no excuse. And why now? Because I saw them. Because I saw myself reflected in them. Because I can't pretend nothing happened. Sophia fell silent. It was clear she was about to say something harsher, but she didn't. Instead, she pulled a paper from her bag. It was a folded sheet. This is the most I'm giving you for now, she said, placing it on the table. Marcus took it. It was a copy of one of the children's birth certificates. He read the name, Ethan Miller. The space for father was empty. Why didn't you put my name? Because you weren't there. Because I didn't even know if you wanted to be a father. And because I wasn't going to beg anyone to be one. Marcus squeezed the paper in his hands and put it in his jacket. And the other 2? Same case. They don't have a registered father? She nodded, swallowing hard. Silence for a few seconds. Can I see them? Talk to them? No, they're not ready right now. They don't understand who you are. And I don't want you approaching them with promises you won't keep. I won't fail them. You said that last time. The phrase hit him like a punch. Marcus didn't respond. Sophia stared at him. But deep down, her eyes also reflected exhaustion, as if she was tired of carrying everything alone. Can I help you? He asked, almost in a whisper. With anything. School, food, clothes. I'm not asking for anything. Just let me do this. I don't want your money, Marcus. It's not about the money. It's about them. She looked at him in silence. Then she looked at the time. Your time's up. She stood up, grabbed her bag, and left. She didn't turn around, didn't say goodbye. Marcus stayed there alone, with the cold coffee and his head full of questions. Doubt gnawed at him, and even though she hadn't confirmed it directly, he already knew. He felt it in his bones. Those children were his, and he wouldn't stop until he proved it. Marcus spent 2 days mulling over the same idea. Sophia wasn't telling him everything. He was very clear on that. There were many things that didn't add up. The birth certificates without a father, her complete disappearance from social media, her resentful gaze. There was a story he didn't know, and he couldn't wait for her to tell it to him willingly anymore. So he decided to seek out someone who knew. He remembered Jessica, a mutual friend they had when he and Sophia were together. She was one of those friendly, good-natured, gossipy, harmless girls who knew everything about everyone. And if anyone could have a clue about what happened to Sophia after he left, it was her. He sent her a direct message. Need to see you. It's about Sophia. Jessica responded quickly. Sophia Miller? You're looking for Sophia after 1,000 years? This is going to be good. They agreed to meet at a restaurant in Chelsea. She arrived late, as always, with her overflowing energy and a dress that drew attention from afar. She sat across from Marcus, smiled as if no time had passed, and picked up the menu unhurriedly. Now you're going to tell me why you ran away like a coward years ago, and now you look like you've lost something. Marcus wasn't in the mood for jokes. Jessica, I need to know something. What happened to Sophia after I left? She looked at him, put down the menu and crossed her arms. Why are you asking me this now? Because I saw her. She's here in the city. She has 3 kids. Jessica's eyes widened. What, 3? And they're mine. I know, Marcus said. Even if she doesn't tell me, I know. Jessica was silent for a few seconds, then sighed. I knew this would happen someday. Knew what? Look, I don't know all the details, but I know that after you left, Sophia disappeared. One day she quit her job, closed her Facebook account, stopped answering calls and messages. No one knew anything. I thought she'd gone to another country or something. But one day, about a year later, I ran into her at a convenience store. She had a double stroller and a baby in her arms. I almost fainted. I asked her, "What happened? What happened? Why did you never say anything?" And she just told me. There was nothing to say. Marcus clenched his jaw. He could feel his heart beating faster. She didn't tell you they were mine? No, but she didn't have to. I mean, hello, they were like photocopies of you. And honestly, the way she mentioned you was strange, with pain, but also with a desire not to talk about the topic anymore. She told me she was fine, that she was managing, that she had help from an aunt, and that she didn't need anyone. Not you, not me, not anyone. Marcus fell silent. His face burned. He didn't know if it was from shame or anger. Where did she live back then? I don't know. She didn't want to tell me. I only found out she was working at a daycare in the Bronx, but she didn't last long there. Then I heard she was fired because a jealous parent found out she was a single mother of triplets and caused a scandal. Do you understand why I say it wasn't easy for her and no one else helped her? No one. She didn't want help. She locked herself in her own world. She didn't want anyone to see her struggling. She's always been stubborn like that. Strong, but stubborn. Marcus leaned back in his chair. His shoulders, his head, his soul felt heavy. Why didn't she tell me? Why didn't she come to me? Jessica looked at him with a raised eyebrow. Are you seriously asking me that? After you left her without a word? Look, I like you, but you made a huge mistake. Sophia didn't look for you because she didn't want to beg, because she knew that if you weren't there to stay, it wasn't worth having you around. You chose to leave. She chose to move on. The silence became uncomfortable. Marcus didn't know what to say. He had never heard all of this so directly. He had always carried the guilt, yes, but hearing how things actually happened was different. It hurt a lot. Jessica looked at him more calmly. Are you going to get a DNA test? Yes, soon, but I don't think I need it anymore. Well, if you're going to get involved again, you'd better do it seriously. Because if you leave again, this time, there will be no turning back. Marcus nodded. He didn't promise anything grand. He simply knew that, from that moment on, there would be no turning back. That afternoon, Marcus couldn't take it anymore. He didn't want to beat around the bush or drop hints. He had spoken to Jessica. He had seen the birth certificate. He had felt that pang in his chest from the moment he first saw the children, and he was tired of carrying the doubt. So he went to find Sophia. He waited outside this building where she lived. He didn't call beforehand. He didn't give her a heads up. He simply parked his SUV, leaned against it with a serious expression, determined to talk, and he wouldn't leave without answers. He no longer cared if she got angry, yelled, or dismissed him. All he wanted was to hear the truth plainly. At 5:30 p.m., he saw her come out with her 3 children. They were dressed the same as before, with small backpacks, neatly combed hair, chatting among themselves. She walked briskly, with that "I'm running late" look that all mothers who juggle 1,000 things a day have. When she saw him, she stopped dead in her tracks. "What are you doing here?" she asked, without moving. "We need to talk," he replied directly. "The same thing again? We already talked. I gave you space. I told you what I had to say. What more do you want? I want the truth, the whole truth, no beating around the bush." The children watched the scene, not fully understanding. Marcus knelt down and said with a forced smile, "Excuse me, can I talk to your mom for a minute? Just a little bit." They looked at him with curiosity. One of them, Ethan, was the first to respond. "Your mom's friend." Sophia stepped forward immediately. "Go to the juice stand. I'll catch up with you in 5 minutes. Don't go far." The children obeyed. As soon as they were out of earshot, she turned, arms crossed, with a piercing gaze. "What part of 'I don't want this' do you not understand? I don't care if you want it or not anymore. I'm not here to fight. I'm here because it's my right to know. It's not just your story, Sophia. It's mine too." "Mine too?" She scoffed with an ironic laugh. "You remember that? 6 years later? Because when you left, you didn't say, 'It's our story.' You just said, 'I'm leaving.' Just like that. You didn't give me an option. I know. I've been told before, and I don't deny it. But I'm here now, not to make amends or to apologize 100 times. I'm here because I'm not going on without knowing the truth. I want to know if they're my children." "Yes, they are," she exclaimed suddenly. The phrase floored him. It wasn't a yell. It wasn't anger. It was dry, cold, hard. Like when someone drops a glass on the floor and doesn't need to see it to know it's broken. "All 3? "Yes, all 3. They're yours, Marcus." He closed his eyes for a second. Everything churned inside him. A knot formed in his throat. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Sophia looked at him with red eyes, holding back what was inside. She didn't cry. She didn't break down. But it was clear she was on the verge. "And before you ask, yes, I knew from day one. I knew I was pregnant a week after you left. I thought about calling you, looking for you, but I couldn't. I didn't want to. I was scared, angry, ashamed, all at once, so I raised them alone. Why didn't you tell me anything? Why didn't you believe me? Why were you in another world? Why was I just a memory to you, not a person? And why wouldn't I raise my children with someone who left without looking back? Marcus clenched his teeth. You have no idea how many times I thought about coming back, about calling you. But I was scared. I told myself you'd be fine, that I'd ruin everything. And now what are you doing? Coming to fix what you did to me? Coming with a hug and a check? No, I'm coming to ask for a chance. Not with you, but with them. Sophia looked at him. This time she didn't answer immediately. She thought, crossed her arms, and took a deep breath. They don't know who you are. They don't know you. They never asked me about a father because they didn't need one, and now you show up out of nowhere with a "I came to be responsible" look. It's not that easy. I don't want it to be easy. I just want you to let me approach them slowly, with respect, with calm. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you to let me get to know them. Oh, and what are you going to tell them? That you're the magical father who appeared after 6 years? I don't know. I have no idea how to do it. I just know that if I leave again, I won't be able to live with it. Sophia fell silent. The silence between them was so heavy that they could hear the car horns in the background and a woman shouting the price of tamales. After a while, she said, I'll think about it. But if you enter their lives one day, you can't leave. You can't do this halfway. Because if you're going to hurt them, I'd rather you never see them. I'm not leaving, Marcus said without hesitation. Sophia nodded slowly. She said nothing else. She walked to where the children were, took all 3 of their hands, and walked away without looking back. But this time, something was different. This time, she hadn't pushed him away. She had let him stay. One step, however small, was a beginning. What do you think of Sophia's decision? Is Marcus truly ready to commit? Let us know in the comments. Since Sophia told him the children were his, Marcus couldn't think of anything else. Work no longer mattered. Unanswered emails piled up. Important calls went to voicemail. Everything else faded. There were only 3 names in his head: Ethan, Liam, and Noah. His sons. His sons. But despite hearing what she said, something inside him wouldn't let him rest. He wanted to be sure. He needed it. Not because he doubted her, but because he felt an urgent need to confirm that he wasn't dreaming. It was as if his mind demanded physical proof, a document, something to tell him, yes, they are yours. There's no turning back. And though he knew it was wrong, that it wasn't the right path, he let himself be swayed. One Thursday, outside the children's school, Marcus waited in his SUV. Parked a block away, hidden behind tinted windows, he had found out which school it was thanks to Lucas. He didn't tell Sophia anything. He didn't ask for permission. He simply went. He had a plan in mind and would carry it out without overthinking the consequences. Seeing the children come out, he felt a hollowness in his stomach. They walked together, laughing, playing with their backpacks. They looked so much like him that he almost wanted to cry. A tall, bearded man, who worked as a school aide, guided them to a bench while they waited for someone to pick them up. Marcus got out of the car with a small bag in his hand and walked towards them with a determined step. "Hi," he said, smiling. "Do you remember me? I'm Marcus, your mom's friend." Ethan recognized him instantly. "Yeah, the one who talked to her in front of the building." "That's right. Hey, can I ask you a question? It's a surprise, but I need something from you. Does anyone have gum, a toothbrush, or something you've used?" Liam pulled a bitten lollipop from his pocket. Marcus knelt down, carefully picked it up, put it in a plastic bag, and smiled. "Perfect. Thanks, champ. You'll see what a pleasant surprise I have for you." The children looked at him with a puzzled expression, but said nothing more. Just as he was about to leave, Sophia appeared, her bag in hand, as rushed as ever. She saw him from a distance and frowned. She walked directly toward him. "What are you doing here?" "Just passing by. Wanted to see how the kids were doing, that's all." "Did you touch them?" "Of course not." She crossed her arms, not believing him. "I don't want you lurking around without notice. Understood?" "Yes, I just wanted to see them." Sophia took all 3 children by the hand and left without saying goodbye. Marcus stayed there for a while, watching them walk away. Then he returned to his car, opened the glove compartment, and placed the bag with the lollipop in a special box. The next day, he sent it to a private laboratory, requesting an urgent DNA test. He already had samples of his own saliva saved. Everything was ready. Everything was done. The result arrived 3 days later. Positive. Ethan was his son. It was written in large letters in an encrypted email that he could barely read without his hands trembling. He sat in front of the computer, took a deep breath, and closed his eyes. He knew it. He felt it. But seeing it in an official document with numbers, codes, and percentages shook him. That day, he bought toys. 3 identical ones. Books, new backpacks, shoes, clothes. He filled his trunk with things he thought they might need. He sent a message to Sophia. "I need to talk to you. It's urgent." She didn't respond to the first, second, or third message. She ignored him. 2 days later, he showed up unannounced at her work. Sophia was leaving a coffee shop where she washed dishes in the afternoons. Seeing him, she stopped dead in her tracks. "What are you doing here? Are you following me? We need to talk. It's important." "Again? What did you do now?" "I took a test." She looked at him, confused. "What test?" "DNA. I used a sample from Ethan. I'm sorry, I needed it." Sophia pushed him away angrily. "Are you sick or what? You can't go around taking things from my kids without permission. Who do you think you are?" "I'm their father," Marcus shouted. People turned. Some stopped. He lowered his voice, but his face burned. "You have no right. You have no damn right. You lied to me. You deceived me. You pretended you only wanted to know them, and you did this behind my back. I was afraid you'd shut me out again. I needed to know. I couldn't stand the doubt anymore. And that gives you permission to invade us like this?" "No, but I did it anyway. And I don't regret it because now I know it's real. That I'm not crazy. That I have children. That I'm not imagining it." Sophia froze. She didn't know whether to scream, cry, or hit him. But in the end, she just looked at him with disappointment. "And now what? Are you going to test the other 2 too? Are you going to buy love with new toys and pretty pictures?" "I don't want to buy anything. I want to be authentic." She looked at him for a long time, then turned, went back into the cafe, and closed the door without looking back. Marcus was left alone outside, with the bags in his trunk, his hands empty. But inside him, the obsession was no longer a doubt. It was a certainty, and he had no intention of stopping. "What do you think of Marcus's actions? Was he right to take matters into his own hands? Share your opinions." Danielle Hayes had a knack for sensing when something was wrong. And Marcus, though brilliant in business, skilled at maintaining a poker face and getting what he wanted, couldn't fake it with her. Not for long. Something in his demeanor had shifted. He was late, distracted in meetings, silent at dinner, leaving his phone face down. Something he never did before. And worst of all, he'd grown cold, as if his mind was in another world, one where she no longer existed. She observed him for days without a word, silently scrutinizing him while he believed he had everything under control, until one day, while Marcus was showering, Danielle unlocked his phone. It wasn't difficult. He still used the same password from years ago. She went straight to the messages. The first thing she read was, "I need to talk to you. It's urgent." It was to someone named Sophia. She scrolled down and reviewed more. Short but intense messages. Words like, children, tests, I'm sorry, I need to be here. She froze. She felt anger rising in her chest. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply turned off the screen. She left the phone where it was and left as if nothing had happened. That night, she didn't say a word. She simply ate dinner in front of Marcus with a forced smile, asking about business, feigning interest. But inside, she was furious. She knew she couldn't confront him yet. First, she needed more. She needed proof, and she would get it. The next day, she sent her assistant Chloe to investigate. She gave her a name, Sophia Miller, and asked for a complete report. It wasn't the first time she had used her contacts for personal matters. She had done it before and knew exactly who to call. Meanwhile, she started following Marcus. She hired a driver with clear instructions not to lose sight of him. Marcus moved between the office, a public school in Queens, an old apartment building in Brooklyn, and a coffee shop where he met a woman. The driver took photos and sent them. Danielle looked at them all, one by one, and with each image, her anger grew. When she finally had all the information, she read it, her teeth clenched. Sophia, a teacher, single mother, no social media, no known partner, 3 children, 6 years old, born 6 months after Marcus and she broke up. She felt humiliated, used, betrayed. He wasn't just hiding something from her, but the most important thing a person can have, a parallel family. Because that's what it was. Even if he hadn't been there all those years, even if he was just getting to know them, the reality was the same. He had children with another woman, and he hadn't told her. That night, she waited for him, wide awake. She was sitting on the sofa with a briefcase in her hand when he entered the apartment. "Are you okay?" Marcus asked, seeing her serious expression. "What do you think?" she replied. Without knowing Asisha, he looked at her strangely, took off his jacket. But seeing the briefcase in her hand, he understood everything. "Where did you get that?" "I'm not stupid, Marcus." She sat on the other side of the sofa in silence. "Since when?" she asked, "Not long, I didn't know. And you were going to tell me or marry me and hide it from me." "I don't know, I didn't think about it. It all happened so fast." "Did you sleep with her while you were with me?" "No, it was before, much earlier. I didn't know anything." Danielle stared at him. She didn't entirely believe him, but she didn't interrupt either. "And what are you going to do now?" "I don't know. I'm processing it. I don't want to abandon them. I don't want to repeat the same mistakes. And what place do I have in all of this?" Marcus didn't know what to say. He remained silent, as if every word that came to his mind was a bomb. Danielle stood up, walked around the room, taking deep breaths, then turned and looked at him with that look of a woman who knows she has the power in that moment. "I'll tell you something, Marcus. I've been with you since you were nobody, since before you were a star entrepreneur, since you slept in your office to avoid paying rent. I helped you build everything you have. I used my contacts. I invested money. I bet on you, and I appreciate it. I don't want your thanks. I want loyalty." She was silent. "If you decide to stay with this woman and these children, you and I are over. And I'm not just leaving. I'm going to take everything I can from you. Investors, contracts, image, everything. I'm going to make you lose more than a relationship. You're going to be alone. Is that clear?" Marcus looked at her, surprised. He had never seen her like this. Cold, calculating. It wasn't a threat. It was a declaration. Danielle left that night without saying goodbye, but before she left, she placed an envelope on the table. Inside was a copy of Ethan's birth certificate and a handwritten message. "I played dirty, Marcus. You decide how this ends." Marcus woke up that Monday with a terrible headache. He hadn't slept a wink. Since Danielle left, leaving that envelope and that clear threat, he hadn't had a moment of peace. His mind was filled with noise, ideas, doubts, anger. His phone was full of messages from his team, missed calls from partners, and, worst of all, a scheduled meeting with his company's board of directors, of which Danielle was also a member. He dressed reluctantly, got into his SUV, and drove straight to the office. As soon as he exited the private parking garage, he saw Danielle's black Audi in its spot and knew she had come to deliver on her promise. Nothing was a coincidence. If she said she would sink him, it was because she had the means to do so. When he entered the meeting room, everyone was already seated. The main partners, the accountants, the legal director, and, of course, Danielle, sitting at the back in her white dress with a contained smile, as if nothing had happened. But he knew her. He knew her face was just the disguise of someone carrying dynamite in their purse. "Marcus," one of the partners said, "Danielle told us there's something urgent we need to discuss with you." He froze for a second. Danielle intervened. "Yes," she said. "I requested this meeting because I believe it's important that we talk about stability, reputation, leadership, things that have been a bit shaky lately." Her tone was polite, but full of venom. Marcus stared at her, not interrupting. She continued speaking as if she were giving a lecture. "We've all noticed that you've been disconnected. Your performance has dropped. Your involvement in key projects has been minimal. And, well, there are concerns about your public image." One of the investors shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "What exactly are you talking about?" Marcus asked firmly. Danielle looked at him with a radiant smile. "About what everyone already knows or is about to know. Your personal life, Marcus. The one that has kept you distracted, chasing an ex-girlfriend and some children no one knows. And besides, leaving the business halfway." He tensed. He hadn't thought she would say that in front of everyone. "My personal life has nothing to do with what we do here." "Of course it does," she interrupted him. "Because when your name appears in the media, when your personal decisions affect the company's credibility, of course it has a lot to do with it. And, believe me, questions have already started. And not all the answers make you feel good." The silence grew heavier. Marcus clenched his fists on the table. He knew she could, that she had contacts in the press, that she could manipulate headlines, that she knew where to attack. "What do you want?" he finally exclaimed. Danielle crossed her arms, no longer pretending. "I want you to put everything in its place, to distance yourself from Sophia Miller, from your children, from this story, and to focus on what really matters. And if you don't, I'll leak everything, from your negligence to the dirtiest details. You know what sells? The story of the millionaire who left his girlfriend pregnant with triplets and now wants to come back as a hero. It's going to explode on social media. You're going to lose clients, trust, support. You wouldn't do that. You don't know me as well as you think." There was an awkward silence. No one said anything. No one defended him. They simply looked at him, as if they were already waiting for his decision. Marcus left the room without a word. He locked himself in his office and lowered the blinds. He sat down, rested his elbows on the table, and held his head in his hands. Everything he had built, everything he had cared for over the years, was in danger. And the worst part was that he felt he deserved it for abandoning her, for coming back late, for not knowing how to face it without ruining everything. That day, he didn't go to see Sophia. He didn't answer her messages. He stayed locked up. He didn't even eat. He just thought about what he was going to do. He felt that if he took one path, he would lose something. If he chose Sophia and his children, Danielle would ruin his career. If he decided to protect the company, he would betray his own blood. 3 children who had asked for nothing, who were only there because he decided to leave one day. At the end of the day, when no one else was left in the office, Marcus stood in front of the bathroom mirror. He looked at himself as he hadn't in a long time. He had dark circles under his eyes, an unshaven beard, and a dull gaze. He didn't recognize himself. He felt divided into 1,000 pieces, and there, alone, with his head in pieces, he understood that he couldn't keep playing in two worlds. Danielle was right about one thing. He had to make a decision. But what she didn't know was that even if it cost him everything, he had already chosen a side. He just needed the courage to say it out loud. Do you think Marcus will make the right choice? What would you sacrifice for your family? Comment below. Following Danielle's threat, Marcus felt trapped. It was as if he suddenly lost control of his life. At his company, he had to act as if nothing was wrong, as if everything was in order, as if his world wasn't collapsing. Conversely, when he was with Sophia and the children, everything was different. There, he wasn't the CEO, the entrepreneur, the kind of person who had to make cold decisions. There, he was just Marcus. And though it felt good, he knew he couldn't live like that much longer. It was like walking a tightrope, waiting for it to snap at any moment. His days were filled with excuses. In the mornings, he'd arrive at the office and pretend to be focused. He met with clients, discussed numbers, signed papers. Sometimes, he'd have lunch with Danielle, and she'd treat him as if everything was in limbo, but with that look that said she hadn't forgotten a single word of her threat. Occasionally, she'd make passive-aggressive comments, like when she'd casually say, "Don't be late today, you're getting too old to be running after kids." He'd force a laugh, but inside he felt scrutinized. In the afternoons, however, his demeanor would change. He'd call Sophia. If she agreed, he'd pick up the kids, not in the armored SUV, but in a simpler car, one that wouldn't attract attention. Sometimes, he'd take them to the park for ice cream or to the movies. They were always simple things, but as exciting as Christmas. At first, Sophia wouldn't stay. She'd let them go with him, but with 1,000 instructions. Don't give them sweets after 6. The middle one gets sick easily, so drive slowly. The youngest doesn't like sudden hugs. These were maternal details she knew by heart. Marcus mentally noted them, as if they were sacred orders, and followed them to the letter. Over time, Sophia started staying a little longer. At first, she only came when the children returned. Then, she'd sit on the same bench while they played. Later, she agreed to grab coffee. And one afternoon, without planning it, all 5 ended up at a small neighborhood pizza place, laughing at something Liam had said. It was the first time Sophia had truly smiled without that weight on her shoulders. Marcus was really getting to know his sons. Ethan was the leader, the most talkative, the one who asked everything. Liam was quieter, but very observant. And Noah, the youngest, was the most affectionate, always seeking contact, touching his shoulder without asking permission. One afternoon, in the middle of an impromptu picnic at a park, Marcus was helping them inflate some balloons. Ethan looked at him intently and exclaimed, "You're my daddy!" Marcus froze, the partially inflated balloon still in his mouth. Sophia, who was a few steps away, spun around, her eyes wide. "Why do you say that?" she asked nervously. "Because he looks like us," Ethan replied, with the simple logic of a child who sees everything more clearly than adults. "And he takes care of us, buys us things, and knows how to call us without mixing us up. That's what daddies do." Marcus let go of the balloon, knelt down, and replied with all the calm he could muster. "Yes, Ethan, I'm your daddy." The child looked at him without saying anything else. Then he turned, ran to his brothers, and shouted, "I know who he is!" Sophia approached him immediately. Marcus thought she would scold him, that he had overstepped, but she simply said in a low voice, "Are you sure you can handle this?" He looked straight into her eyes. "I'm not sure of anything, but I'm not going to run away again." That night, Marcus returned to his apartment. Danielle wasn't there. She was out to dinner with some partners. He sat on the sofa, turned on the TV without paying attention, and thought about everything he had experienced that day. The children's laughter, Sophia's gaze, the way the youngest had taken his hand while crossing the street, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, and he felt fear, because no matter how happy he was there, he knew there was an active bomb in the other half of his life. Danielle was waiting for a mistake, just one, and when it happened, she would press the button, destroy everything. But even knowing that, he couldn't leave. Not now. Not after hearing the word "daddy" spoken so innocently for the first time. Not after seeing this family he never thought he'd have, and now didn't want to lose for anything. That Friday seemed like any other. Sophia was on her second shift at the coffee shop. The children left school at 4, and Marcus, as had become customary in recent weeks, had offered to pick them up. She accepted, without hesitation, without fear. She was starting to trust him, even if only a little. She saw how he cared for them, how he listened to them, how he truly knew them. Marcus left the office a little early. He was happy. In his backpack, he carried action figures he had bought for each of them. He had planned to take them to eat hamburgers and then watch a movie at his apartment. He was excited, as if he was living a part of his life he hadn't known existed, a part he enjoyed more than any award, meeting, or contract signing. Upon arriving at the school, his phone rang. An unknown number. He answered without thinking. "Hello, is this Mr. Marcus Thorne?" "Yes, this is him. We're calling from St. Jude's Children's Hospital. One of the children under your care has been admitted urgently. He's in the emergency room." Marcus felt his soul shrink. He didn't know if he screamed or just thought he screamed. His heart pounded as if he had run a marathon. He hung up without saying anything else. He put the car in drive and sped off. On the way, he called Sophia twice. Nothing. The third time, nothing. He texted her. "Liam had an accident. I'm going to the hospital. I'll let you know as soon as I hear anything." When he arrived, he didn't park. He left his SUV poorly parked at the entrance, tossed the keys to the valet, and ran inside. He asked for the child's full name. They led him directly to the emergency room. A doctor came out a few minutes later. "Are you the father?" Marcus hesitated for a second. Just one. Then he said, "Yes, I am the father. The child suffered a bad fall. He hit his head and lost consciousness. We did a CT scan. No fracture, but we'll keep him under observation. He has a mild concussion. He's stable, but we need to monitor him. Can I see him?" They led him to a gurney, where Liam slept with an IV in his arm and a bandage on his forehead. He looked small, fragile, nothing like the child who ran and jumped all day. Marcus sat beside him and took his hand. "I'm here, son. I'm not leaving. Everything's going to be okay." He didn't cry, but his eyes trembled. 20 minutes later, Sophia burst in, running, pale and disheveled. Still in her apron, she pushed the door open without asking permission and went straight to Liam. "What happened? What happened to him?" "He fell during recess," Marcus said in a low voice. "They called me because I was on the emergency contact sheet. You weren't answering." Sophia held the child's face. She spoke to him softly. She kissed his hand, his forehead, and then looked at Marcus. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying. "Thank you for coming." "You're welcome. I was just around the corner. I was coming to pick them up. Did they tell you how it happened?" "Yes. He tripped on the stairs, fell backward, was unconscious for a few minutes, but he's fine. They're just going to monitor him." She nodded. She looked at her son, stroking his hair. "Can I stay with him?" she asked. "Yes, I've already spoken to the nurse. They'll give him a room in a bit. You can stay." "And you?" Marcus looked at her calmly. "I'm staying too, if you let me." Sophia said nothing, but she didn't send him away. She didn't ask him to leave. She just nodded, as if something inside her no longer wanted to fight. Hours later, in the room they had already been assigned, Liam woke up. The first thing he did was look at both of them. "Where am I?" "In the hospital, my love," Sophia said with a nervous smile. Liam looked at Marcus. "And you're here too?" "Of course. I wasn't going to leave without seeing you." The boy smiled. "Did you bring juice?" "Yes. And dinosaurs?" "Then stay." Sophia looked at him, and Marcus, without saying a word, understood that he no longer needed to ask permission. That night, they took turns caring for the child. While one slept on the sofa, the other sat by the bed. They didn't say much, but there were glances, gestures, silences that spoke more than 1,000 words. The next morning, Sophia brought him a coffee. "Thanks for not letting go. Thanks for letting me stay. I'm not doing it out of gratitude. I'm doing it because I've already understood that you're not going to leave." "No." He looked at her with a lump in his throat. "Then let's do this right. What do you think of this turning point? Did Marcus finally earn Sophia's trust? Subscribe to our channel for the next part of this emotional journey. Danielle never forgave. Never. Especially when she felt ridiculed. For her, the world knowing that her fiancé had 3 children with another woman was the worst thing that could happen. Not just for pride, but for power. In her world, respect was earned through control, through fear, through a perfect image. And Sophia, with her kind face, simple clothes, and those children who hadn't asked to be born into this, took all that away from her without even trying. Danielle didn't scream. She didn't make a scene. She just took a deep breath, fixed her hair in front of the mirror, and told Chloe, her assistant, "Make this woman disappear." Chloe looked at her intently, like someone who knows they shouldn't ask, but also can't stay silent. "What do you mean by that?" "I don't want anyone to hire her anymore. I want the city to see her as a danger, not a victim." "But she didn't do anything." "I don't need her to have done anything. I just need it to look like she did." The next day, Danielle moved as only she knew how. She had a network of contacts that spanned digital media, informal news portals, gossip social media accounts, and even a couple of police reporters who owed her favors. And the game began. First, a small note on a local page. Headline: "Daycare Scandal. Teacher hides past. Works with children without valid license." Accompanied by a blurry photo of Sophia entering her workplace with a backpack slung over her shoulder. Then, the social media comments. Anonymous people claiming to have had problems with her. Mothers who supposedly remembered her years ago. Fake stories mixed with half-truths. Enough to sow doubt. Enough to tarnish. And it worked. In less than 3 days, the daycare director called Sophia into her office. "We need to suspend you while we investigate the situation," she said uncomfortably. "It's not personal, but there's pressure from parents. The school's image is at stake." Sophia didn't understand anything. "What did I do?" "It's not about what you did. It's about what people think you did." She left with a heavy heart, walking aimlessly, her hands sweating. On the way, her phone rang. It was Marcus. "Are you okay?" he asked calmly. "They just suspended me from the daycare." "What? Why?" "I don't know. They say there's a problem with my record, an old complaint, that people are bad-mouthing me on social media." "What complaint?" "I don't know, Marcus. I don't know what they're talking about. I've never done anything wrong." At that moment, she knew who was behind it. She didn't need proof. She just sensed it. Because if anyone could invent a scandal that quickly, it was Danielle. She arrived and called Lucas. "I need you to investigate if anyone from Danielle's team has been in the media or leaked anything." Fast. Meanwhile, Sophia arrived at her apartment. As soon as she crossed the door, she saw a camera pointed at her from the sidewalk across the street. It was a guy with a telephoto lens, one of those who look for scandalous photos to sell. She slammed the door shut and peeked through the curtain. The man was still there, waiting. She didn't sleep that night. The children did, but she didn't. She constantly checked her phone, reading messages that came in, some supportive, many filled with hate. People she didn't know saying horrible things, calling her from unknown numbers. A woman even insulted her loudly when she went to buy bread. Marcus went to see her the next morning. She greeted him with a look that showed she couldn't take it anymore. Dark circles under her eyes. A low voice. "I don't want the children to go through this. Let's fix it." "What?" "They already kicked me out of the daycare. They said they were going to check my background." "What background? Is it a crime to have children alone now?" "You're not alone, and we're going to clear your name." "And what if there's no way out? What if I can't go out in the street anymore without being seen as a disgrace?" "No, they won't grow up seeing their mother humiliated by a lie." He looked at her, exhausted, but there was fire in her eyes. "It was Danielle, wasn't it?" Marcus didn't answer. He didn't have to. That afternoon, while the children played with Legos in the living room, Sophia sat on the sofa with a lost look and, for the first time aloud, said something she had been holding back for years. "I'm not going to let them destroy me again. Not now." Marcus only realized the full impact of the blow when it was already too late to stop. Everything happened in a matter of days, as if someone had pulled a thread, and suddenly everything unraveled. First, a call from a foreign investor. The usual. Concern about public image. Rumors of personal instability in the company's leadership. Marcus tried to calm the waters, to say that everything was under control. But it was too late. Doubt had already been sown. Then the emails arrived. The main partner in one of his most important projects canceled an agreement that had been months in the making. He used elegant words to disguise it. Internal restructuring, changes in focus, new opportunities. But Marcus knew exactly what that meant. They were leaving him alone, and probably, behind it all, was her. Danielle hadn't dropped just one bomb, but several, all at once. She had let the public judge him for his private life. She had leaked details of his absences, of how he had prioritized his personal interests over important negotiations. In fact, someone, probably Chloe, her loyal assistant, had leaked a copy of one of the children's birth certificates. The document went viral on a financial forum under the title, "The Millionaire Who Forgot His Children." The damage was done. Lucas, now Marcus's friend and almost brother, entered his office one afternoon with a grim face. "2 partners down," he said, placing papers on the table. "And the bank didn't renew the credit line. They believe your reputation affects the brand's value." Marcus didn't respond. He simply watched everything with tears in his eyes. He could no longer be angry or even surprised. It was as if he was watching from the outside, as if all of this was happening to someone else. That same afternoon, he received a message from Danielle. Only 3 words. "I warned you." And then he understood that there was no way to continue in that world. Not like this. Not with her lurking. Not with that hell raging above him. He understood that everything he had built could disappear. But what he was building with Sophia and the children, that was what was worthwhile. That was what made sense. That night, while the children slept and Sophia washed dishes in her apartment, he sat beside her, without his usual suit, or his phone glued to his hand. He sat with a different expression, more tired, more human. "I've lost everything," he said bluntly. Sophia dropped the cloth in the sink and looked at him without saying anything. Danielle kept her threat. They took me off projects, canceled contracts. I'm off the board. They erased me. And what are you going to do now? I don't know, but I want to do this with you. She said nothing, just looked at him. I don't want to live divided between two lives anymore. I don't want to hide anymore. I don't want to be silent anymore. Sophia sighed, approached, and sat beside him. I can't promise everything will be okay. Me neither. But I can promise I won't leave, even if we're at zero. Even if I have to start from scratch. Are you at zero? The one in the expensive suit? Marcus laughed for the first time in days. Not anymore. I have suits. I saved them all. And what are you going to do? I'm going to sell my share of the company. With that, we'll manage for a while. Then we'll see. I'm tired of living to please others. Sophia looked at him with fear, but also with something new in her eyes. Respect. Would you really do that? I'm already doing it. Sophia lowered her gaze, and right there, in that small kitchen, without cheesy promises or soap opera hugs, she took his hand. Then stay. But this time, for real. The next day, Marcus went to his old office just to sign his exit papers. He didn't make a scene, didn't give a speech, didn't ask for applause. He simply walked in and signed. He took a few personal items, a photo of his father, an old mug with his name on it, and a notebook. And he left. Danielle didn't show up. She didn't appear. But he knew she was watching everything from her office, that she undoubtedly felt victorious. And maybe she even was. In that world. In that game, she won. But Marcus no longer wanted to play. He got into his car, put on music for the first time in weeks, and for the first time in a long time, his heart didn't break. He felt fear, yes, but also relief, because now he was free to live the life he truly wanted. And because at that moment, as he drove down the highway with the sun setting, he knew his true story was just beginning. What an emotional turn. Did Marcus make the right decision? Is this truly the end of his old life? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. The apartment was small, with pale walls and worn furniture, but it had something Marcus hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not that boring peace, or the kind one fakes so people won't ask questions. It was something more. It was the sound of 3 children running down the hallway with their socks askew, the smell of burnt breakfast as everyone complained, and the beautiful chaos of a real family. Since leaving his company and selling his shares, Marcus had completely changed. The first thing he did was buy an old car, one of those that still had push-button radios and manual windows. The second thing he did was stop watching financial news. He didn't even open work emails. He shut off everything from his previous life, as if closing a door without looking back. Now he woke up every day at 6 in the morning, not for a meeting or an international flight. He woke up because the children had to be ready for school, because one took forever to get dressed, another hid their shoes, and the youngest always lost his lunchbox. Everything was a mess, but he loved it. At first, Sophia looked at him with a raised eyebrow, as if asking if he was serious or if he would give up at any moment. But days passed, and Marcus was still there, making coffee, sweeping the room, carrying backpacks, helping with homework, sometimes badly, sometimes clumsily, but always enthusiastically. And that was what mattered most. One day, while taking clothes off the clothesline, Sophia looked at him sideways. Don't you miss your other life? What, the one with expensive dinners and tight ties? Yeah, that one. Not one bit. Truly, I've never slept so peacefully, even though one wakes me up at 3 in the morning because he dreamt of monsters, and the other accidentally kicks me in the back. Sophia laughed softly. It was a laugh she hadn't let out in a long time, one of those that escape involuntarily, unfiltered. Marcus looked at her for a second longer than necessary. She noticed, but didn't pull away. She just lowered her gaze with a shy smile. "And what are you going to do now?" she asked while folding a t-shirt. "I'm not sure. I have some money saved, but I don't want to go back to the usual. I was thinking of setting up something small, my own business, maybe a coffee shop, something quiet." "You have a coffee shop?" "Yeah, I even know how to make French press coffee. Lucas taught me." Sophia looked at him, surprised. "Lucas, the assistant in the suit and glasses?" "Same guy. He has a sandwich food truck now. He told me he's doing well." "And you'd give up your millions for that?" "I already did." That day, for the first time, all 5 of them ate together at the dining table, unhurriedly, without interruptions. Marcus sat in the middle of his 3 sons, cutting chicken, pouring them water, and wiping sauce off the tablecloth without complaining. He looked tired, but happy, as if he was finally in the right place. Later, while they played with colorful blocks, Noah, the youngest, sat on his lap and told him bluntly, "Daddy, can you come to open day tomorrow?" Marcus looked at him as if he had just received the greatest award in the world. "Open day?" "Yeah, it's a day when parents can come see us dance and recite poems." "Will there be cookies?" "Of course I'll be there," he heard Sophia say from the kitchen. She said nothing, but he felt a tightness in his chest, not from sadness, but from emotion. It was the first time one of the boys had called him Daddy so naturally, without hesitation, without thinking if it was right or wrong. That night, Marcus washed the dishes, swept the living room, and then watched TV with Sophia. Nothing extraordinary, just a game show with long commercials, but they felt comfortable, unhurried, without awkward silences. "You know what's the hardest thing?" Marcus said, half asleep. "What?" Not screaming to the world that this is the life I've always wanted. She looked at him without responding, turned off the TV, and stayed beside him in silence. But it was no longer that silence filled with distance. It was one that said, "I'm here too." It seems like Marcus has truly found his happiness. Will this peace last? Follow our channel to find out. Finally, everything seemed to have stabilized. The rhythm at home was no longer chaotic, but routine. The kind that makes you tired. Yes, but also brings peace. The children no longer asked strange questions, no longer got confused. Sophia and Marcus had learned to move together, to trust, to give each other space. They even went to the daycare's open day, and Marcus ended up crying while Noah recited a badly memorized poem that ended in laughter. Everything was going well until Danielle returned. The first sign was a letter. It arrived in a white envelope with no return address. Sophia found it in the mailbox one afternoon, returning from the stationery store with the children. She opened it without thinking much. It was an official document, a legal summons. A fraud case for document forgery, closed 4 years ago, had been reopened, and she, Sophia Miller, was summoned as the accused. She felt the street disappear beneath her. Her hands went numb. She called Marcus on her cell phone, with the children shouting around her. He arrived in less than 20 minutes, and upon reading the paper, he understood everything. They didn't need proof. They didn't need to investigate. This move had a name. Danielle. "Has this happened to you before?" Marcus asked, his voice tense. "Yes," Sophia replied, looking at the floor. "Years ago, when I worked at a small law firm, my boss asked me to sign some papers. I trusted him. I didn't ask questions. I was pregnant. I needed the job. Then he disappeared, and they blamed me. I defended myself, cried, explained everything, and in the end, there was no proof. Everything was closed, but that was a mark, and now they've brought it back. Yes, her, yes." Marcus gripped the steering wheel tightly. He knew Danielle was capable of unpleasant things, but this was on another level. She wasn't just angry. She was determined to destroy. And this time, it wasn't against him, it was against Sophia. A few days later, rumors spread. At the children's school, some mothers began whispering things. One of them even told Sophia to her face, "They say you've had problems with the law. It's awful that this affects the children, isn't it?" Sophia didn't respond. She swallowed her anger and left with her head held high, but inside, she was shattered. Years of enduring stares, accusations, rejections, all for a mistake that wasn't hers. Marcus began to move. Although he no longer had the power he once did, he still retained contacts. He called a lawyer who had been his client and explained everything. The lawyer reviewed the case and told him the truth. This smells like revenge, but the judge agreed to reopen it because someone presented new evidence. That is, someone with power pushed it through. If we don't stop this, it will escalate. And if we get to the bottom of it, if we prove this evidence is false, they can do it. But it will take time. And meanwhile, she's still guilty, even if she's not. Sophia listened in silence. Every word weighed like a stone in her chest. At night, when the children were asleep, they would sit in the kitchen, facing each other. The light was dim. They didn't speak loudly, as if they didn't want to wake either the children or the hope they still had. "I don't want them to go through this," Sophia said in a low voice. "Me neither, but I'm not going to leave you alone. And if I lose, we'll lose together." "I don't want you to lose again. You already gave everything for me, and you gave everything for them, for me too, without even knowing it. You're not alone in this, Sophia, never again." She looked at him with fear, real fear. Not of the case or the trial, but of people's judgment, of life, of those who don't forgive a woman who made the mistake of trusting. Marcus stood up. He went to the children's room and watched them sleep. Then he returned to her and took her hand. "If she wants to play dirty, so will we. But with the truth. This time, I won't hide. I'll face it." He squeezed her hand, and for the first time since receiving that letter, she didn't feel like she was sinking alone. The courtroom smelled of nerves, cheap coffee, old folders, of people coming and going with tired faces. There were no cameras or flashes, but for Sophia, this place was harder than any news report. It was the place where, once again, she would be pointed at, where, once again, she would have to explain herself, defend herself, and this time with the eyes of the past, the present, and all of America on her. Marcus had been with her since dawn, squeezing her hand on the wooden bench where they waited their turn to enter. Beside them, the lawyer they had hired reviewed papers, talked on the phone, read and reread the case as if something would magically change. Sophia said nothing, just stared at the floor, not out of fear of the room, but because of what it meant, because now not only her name, her reputation, her freedom were at stake. The stability of her children, that peace of mind they had barely begun to build, was also at stake. "Ready?" Marcus asked softly. She nodded. She wasn't, but she had to say yes. They entered. The room was simple, a judge in the center, clerk on one side, 2 chairs in front. The rest were church pews. Everything felt cold and hard. When her full name was called, Sophia stood up and walked forward. The judge asked her to state her occupation. She did so with a firm voice, although inside she felt her legs trembling. "Have you ever falsified legal documents?" the prosecutor asked bluntly. "I signed papers without reading them. I trusted my boss. He told me it was routine. And if that paper contained false information, I am not considered responsible. I didn't know it was false." The prosecutor smiled, as if he already had the answer. "Ignoring something doesn't make you innocent, Ms. Miller." Marcus clenched his teeth. He wanted to stand up, to shout, but he couldn't. It wasn't his place. Not yet. The defense attorney presented evidence. He stated that the case had already been closed, due to lack of evidence. That reopening it with almost identical documents made no sense, but the judge allowed it to continue. There was a new statement from someone who claimed Sophia had knowingly participated. An anonymous witness, they said. The tension escalated. Sophia looked at Marcus. He responded with a look that conveyed confidence. Outside, in the street, the news had already spread. A gossip account had published it that morning. Ex-teacher accused of fraud. Mother of ex-businessman Marcus Thorne's children. Old photos recirculated. Her face, the children's, Marcus's. All mixed in posts full of judgment, hate, and very little factual information. Lucas, now Marcus's friend and almost brother, was the one who delivered the surprise that day. He arrived in the middle of the trial with a folder under his arm and a look that said, "I've got something." He handed it to the lawyer, who read it, his eyes wide. He requested to speak to the judge. "Your Honor, I have a sworn statement from Arthur Peterson, the accused's former boss, who signed this document confessing that he forced Sophia Miller to sign falsified documents to evade responsibilities. He also acknowledges that he fled the country with the money he collected, and that, I quote verbatim, she had no knowledge of anything I did." The prosecutor tried to object. The judge stopped him. "Where is Mayor Peterson?" "In Canada, but he sent the official authenticated document. He also sent a video call, ready to give live testimony." The judge thought for a few seconds and accepted. On the screen appeared a man in his 50s, with a beard and tired eyes. Arthur Peterson. With a firm voice, but showing no guilt, he said, "I prepared everything. I was going to be left without a deal. I falsified papers to cover up mistakes. Sophia had no idea. She just signed what I said." The judge called a recess. In the hallway, Sophia burst into tears, not like a victim, but like someone who has been rescued from a burden of years. Marcus hugged her without saying anything. Finally, after everything, someone spoke the truth for her, even if it was too late. Even if no one else remembered the harm they had done to her. An hour later, they re-entered. The judge asked for silence and stated emphatically, "In the absence of new valid evidence and with the confession received, the case is definitively closed. Sophia Miller is free of all charges." There was no applause or hugs, just a long, dense silence. But for them, that silence was the most beautiful they had heard in a long time. What an incredible twist. Share your joy for Sophia in the comments below. Did you see that coming? The days after the trial felt strange. Not bad, not good, just strange. Like when it rains heavily, and suddenly the sun comes out, but everything is still wet. The scandal was no longer talked about as much. Social media had been distracted by other gossip, and Sophia's name slowly began to disappear from searches. What seemed impossible happened. The storm calmed down. She started to smile again, though it still cost her dearly. She walked down the street with a fixed gaze, but every time someone looked at her too long, her stomach fluttered. Not out of fear of being accused again, but because of everything she had had to carry alone for so long. Years of enduring stares, accusations, rejections, all for a mistake that wasn't hers. Marcus, for his part, made sure to put everything in order at home. The routine with the children, household chores, walks in the park. Though he also sensed that something was about to happen, he didn't know what. But it was like that feeling you get when everything is very calm. And yes, it was. One Tuesday afternoon, returning from dropping the children off at school, they found an envelope under the apartment door. There was no return address. It just said, "To Marcus. Urgent." Sophia looked at him suspiciously. Should we open it? Yes, Marcus said, although he already felt a strange sensation in his chest. He opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter and a photo. The letter read, "You thought the past would never catch up to you, but sometimes it comes back in unexpected ways. This child is also yours." The photo showed a boy about 6 years old, sitting on a park bench. The same hair, the same face, the same mole on his eyebrow that Marcus had seen on his own children. It was like looking into another mirror. Marcus was speechless. He didn't understand. He couldn't speak. "What is this?" Sophia asked, holding the letter in her hands. "It's a joke. I don't know," he replied. His voice choked. "Do you recognize anyone?" "I've never seen them, I swear." She looked at him. Trying to read his face, Marcus could only stare at the photo. His legs trembled. He sat down. "And what does this mean? That it could be true?" he said, barely breathing. "Back then, before I left, I dated someone for a while. It was a disaster. It wasn't even serious. Once, maybe twice. I left shortly after. I never heard from her again." Sophia pressed her lips together. "And if it's true, then I have 4 children?" "No, 3. Silence enveloped them. Sophia paced the room like a caged lioness. Marcus remained seated, motionless, with the letter open on his lap. Who would send this like this, without saying anything else? Why now? "I don't know. But that's not Danielle. That's something else." That night, Marcus didn't sleep. He searched for clues among old papers, photos, old emails. He found a name. Sarah Jenkins, a woman he had briefly dated before moving to San Francisco. She was discreet and serious. He never had contact with her again. But now he couldn't get her face out of his head, or the boys. The next day he went to talk to Lucas. He showed him the letter. Lucas didn't ask anything. He just said, "We'll find her. And if it's true, then you have another story to write?" Sophia supported him. She didn't scold him. She didn't judge him. She just asked him that if he was going to get into this, he should do it right, that he shouldn't leave any loose ends, that he shouldn't repeat the mistakes of the past. Marcus looked at the boy's photo again. His eyes were wide, and his gaze said much more than any letter could explain. And there, with that photo in his hand, he understood that the past never truly closes on its own. There's always something more, and this time he was ready to face whatever came. Only 3 days had passed since the letter arrived, but to Marcus, it felt like weeks. He wasn't eating well, wasn't sleeping, wasn't concentrating. He carried the boy's photo in his pocket at all times, as if having it with him helped him understand something, or at least stay calm. He didn't know if he was about to start a new chapter, or lose the little he had just built. Lucas, as always, was the one who helped him. He found her name, address, and even a contact number. The woman lived in Denver. Sarah Jenkins, who had worked for a logistics company where Marcus had provided consulting services years ago. Nothing more, nothing less. Sophia told him to go. No drama, no complaints, just one thing. Do it right. And so he did. He left in his old car, his stomach churning and his head full of thoughts. All the way, he thought about the children, about Sophia, about the possibility of having another child, one he didn't know, one who never asked to be born this way. He arrived on a Friday afternoon and took a while to gather his courage. It was a simple building, one of those where echoes travel, and everyone knows who's going upstairs. When he knocked on the door, a woman opened it without surprise, as if she knew this day would come. "You knew I'd come?" she asked, dry and direct. "Is the envelope yours?" "Yes." "Why now?" "His name is Owen. He's 6 years old. He was born 4 months after you left. I never told you because you also left without saying anything. I didn't know you were pregnant. I wasn't when you left. I found out later, and I didn't look for you because there was no point. You were already in another world. And why now? Sarah looked at him intently. Because he asks questions. Because he looks so much like you that I couldn't pretend anymore. Because even if you're not here, your face is there every day. And because I want you to know, you have a son. Marcus was speechless. His hands, his heart, everything trembled. Can I talk to him? Sarah hesitated. Then she nodded. She called him softly. Owen came out of the room with a toy in his hand. He looked at Marcus as if he recognized him without knowing where. Hi, the boy said. Hi, champ, Marcus replied, swallowing hard. My name is Marcus. Did you send me the Legos? No, but I can if you want. Owen smiled. Then he fell silent, looking at him with those same eyes Marcus already knew so well. They were like the others, but also different. There was something more reserved, calmer in them. Marcus leaned down to his height. Do you like cartoons? Yes. And dinosaurs? Me too. Owen didn't ask who he was. Not at that moment. He simply approached and handed him the toy he was holding. His name is Thomas. You can play with him if you want. Marcus took it carefully. His fingers trembled. After a while, Sarah took him for a nap. Marcus sat on the sofa in silence. Sarah returned and sat across from him. I don't want your money. I don't want problems. I just want him to know you, if you want to. If not, I'll manage. I want to know him. Are you sure? Yes, I just need some time. Not for him, but to tell the others. He arrived home that night, not knowing how to start the conversation. Sophia greeted him without asking questions. She waited for him to speak. It's true, he finally said. He's my son, and his mother won't ask me for anything. She doesn't want to fight. She just wants him to know me. His name is Owen. Sophia nodded. It took her a while to respond. Will you be in his life? Yes, then we will too. Are you sure? No. But I don't want to be the one to close the door again. Never. The children didn't know instantly. It was little by little. First, they were shown the photo. Then they were told the story as if it were part of a movie, like something that happens, that sometimes adults do things wrong, but they can also try to do them right. A month later, Owen met his brothers. They looked at him as if seeing each other for the first time and didn't say anything strange. There was no drama or jealousy, just a simple phrase from Ethan. Want to play? Owen smiled. Yes. And that's how the past, with all its complications and pain, blended with the present, without magical fixes, without happy endings like in the movies, but with truth, and with the desire to do things right. They wrote the rest, day by day, together, and so, their family grows. What do you think about this unexpected addition? Share your thoughts, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Lesson learned from the story. Life, in its unpredictable tapestry, often offers us second chances, not to erase past mistakes, but to build a more authentic future. Marcus's journey teaches us that true richness isn't measured in wealth or power, but in the courage to face our truths, embrace responsibility, and nurture the genuine connections we've been given. His initial escape from fatherhood, fueled by ambition and fear, led to years of emptiness. It took the undeniable mirror of his children's faces and the steadfast resilience of Sophia to awaken him to what truly matters. The story highlights the profound value of honesty, accountability, and the enduring power of family. It reminds us that sometimes the greatest treasures in life are found not in the pursuit of more, but in the quiet commitment to what we already have, even if it means rebuilding from the ground up. The pain of the past can indeed become the foundation for a deeply meaningful present, if we are brave enough to confront it, accept it, and choose love over regret. The ultimate good in life lies in the courage to show up, fully and authentically, for those who need us most, and to find peace in the beautiful, messy reality of a life truly lived.